It's like, and there's no Zoom option tonight. Otherwise, I'd be on Zoom.
Recording in progress.
Who do I get to be mad at? Oh, sorry.
Started.
Did it just come back up?
Welcome to the April 16th, 2025 Yarmouth Planning Board meeting. I am Joanne Crowley, Chair. This is to formally advise that as required by Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 30A, paragraphs 18 to 25, and pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, and an act relative to extending certain state of emergency accommodations, signed into law on June 16th, 2021. Yarmouth Planning Board will hold a public meeting on April 16th at 5:30. The public is welcome to attend in person this evening or via alternative public access provided on the notice of meeting available on the Town of Yarmouth website. I will begin by taking roll call. Susan Britta.
Present.
Deirdre Gaquin.
Here.
Will Rubenstein.
Here.
Jim Saban. Peter Slovak.
Here.
Ken Smith.
Here.
Joanne Crowley, present. Seeing that we have a quorum, I'll now call the meeting to order. So please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands,
One nation,
under God, indivisible, with
liberty, and justice for all.
Thank you. So the first item on our agenda this evening is our continuing discussions on the local comprehensive plan. Town Planner Kathy Williams has been working on and shared with us draft number 2 with revisions suggested by the input from board members. Thank you for taking the time to take a look. And the BCS group, she and the BCS group have also taken into consideration some of the comments we made at our last meeting. So Kathy, if you want to go over just a couple of high points on the draft number 2.
With regard to the growth policy, there was a couple questions that were asked. One of them was from Deirdre with regard to whether we should refer to the established VCOD villages plus the other areas mentioned. I'm going to leave that up to you guys. And then Mary Wagon also wanted to be sure that the language that we had in there doesn't exclude developments that happen to be all residential. I don't think they do because it's saying economic growth should be focused in areas. Economic growth should be focused. It's not necessarily saying not residential. So, unless anyone has any comments on that. I think if you move on to the natural systems, I tried to take into consideration some of the comments with regard to making the key issues more of an identification of the problem on page 2 versus ultimately trying to get into some of the solutions. So talking about the drinking water is instead of maintaining and improving, it's identifying that there are impacts to drinking water, especially from PFAS and other contaminants, and then the increasing state regulations and quality standards. And again, the concerns with the associated cost and implications and that type of thing. So I tried to reword that. I don't know if you want.
Kathy, do you want to do comments as we go through sections?
Probably easier.
Would that
if
be
we did
easier,
that.
best
Yeah.
for you? So on water resources, any additional comments that people might have? I do have a couple, Kath, in there. Again, I think it's going back to my look-see on parallelism with the language. So on the first one, I was thinking maybe something like threats to drinking water quality, especially blah, blah, blah. The next one, cost and rate implications for water supply and water treatment. Then sliding down, and I'll give these to you, Kath.
Thank you.
Sustainable funding mechanisms for future phases of the wastewater program. Finding is okay, but I thought identification of suitable locations.
Sure.
And then the next one, deterioration of water quality in our freshwater ponds. And on that, I jumped over to the Cape Cod Commission, and they had a whole study on freshwater ponds. And when I looked at the map, they didn't identify one pond for us, except one way up on like right on the Barnstable border. They have this key map, yeah, you can't see it, and neither can the public, I apologize. But they have these dots on where it's watershed, vegetation, nutrient management, algae management. And it's a relatively, I think, new study, and it's pond restoration projects?
Those are ones that have been done, I believe.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I
there's a-
thought this was, maybe I misread it, and I thought it was part of a plan. But anyway, there are no radio buttons for us,
Yeah.
if that's the right, or what do we call those things?
Pins.
Pins.
Yep.
Thank you,
You're welcome.
Mr. Clerk.
You're welcome, ma'am.
I don't know whether there's been any pond restoration projects in the town of Yarmouth. I
Yeah.
do know that they were working with DNR and others and compiling some of that information. But
Right,
yeah,
yeah.
I think those are projects that were actually completed, and then you can probably tick on them and get a little more information on them.
Okay. So does that mean none of ours have been completed? Do we know? We don't know.
I think the commission asked whether we had any pond restoration projects that were completed in each town and to provide information.
Yeah.
So I don't know whether it's
Okay.
the case we didn't provide any, or we don't know what.
Yeah, okay, yep. All right, that's what I have on that one. Anyone else in terms of natural systems? Kath, did you want to go through any changes in the action items?
Yeah, I just would say that action item number 1 there is, as applicable, work with regional partners to evaluate potential for joint monitoring and mitigation strategies. I think that was a comment from Ken.
Yep,
Hopefully that hit that.
it does. Thank you.
Okay. On page 3, on number 8, I think we had talked about this at the last planning board meeting. We want to continue to support and work with the Hyannis PFAS community group. I have talked to Amanda Lima, whether she has any specific projects she wants mentioned on item number 8, and she's going to take a look at that for us. It for page 3. On page 4, again, just trying to change the phraseology there of impacts of sea level rise and saltwater inundation on salt marshes and bordering vegetated wetlands. So I don't know if anyone had any edits on that.
I did have one, Kath, on key issues, the first one, I thought maybe wetland resources and buffers at risk from development and adjacent homeowners, something like that.
Yep.
And I don't think the last bullet is necessary. I think it's redundant, but I would welcome the comments from the board. I mean, it's sounding like I'll jump on Peter's comments, it sounds kind of like sounding like a goal.
Yep, yep, yep.
And as I read it, we don't have an action item necessarily specifically associated with that.
Yeah. I think
I
that's.
don't think it does
I think
anything
it's
harm.
it's similar to the unfamiliarity with the regulations leading to violations and damages to wetland resources. It's the same kind of thing, as if you don't know the wetland resource there, if you don't know that something's a vernal pool, you may not be properly protecting it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't have a problem taking that out.
Part of this process is all of these adjustments, Kathy will make if we're all in kind of consensus that they make sense.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Agreed.
'Cause you can say, no, Joanne, that's really not a good idea. Go ahead.
Your
Ken.
ideas are usually so good, so.
I know. Anyway,
Under plant and wildlife habitat, I think the only change on this section is, I believe that it was Susan who mentioned that we should be mentioning the invasive species mitigation plan that's very extensive, that's happening at the West Yarmouth Parks, at Chasebrook Park, Mill Creek Park, and the former Yankee Village. A lot of the work that's being done there actually is related to,
I thought that was a very important ad. Yeah, that's a big
I
project.
like that it starts with the word complete. We can actually check this off if it's completed.
Very outcome oriented.
There we go.
just some minor, thank you, Deirdre, for tracks, not tracks. I wonder if I have it that way in the open space and recreation plan. Going on to, again, on page 7, it's all just minor commas and that type of thing. When we get to page 8, under community design and land use, I think this is where I tried, this was probably the most egregious version of being more conclusions or action items than actual identification of the issues. I do know that Peter Slovak had sent something along as well that had some comments about this, but maybe we can take a look at what's in here now and see if there's any edits you'd like to make to this. So, originally it was need to preserve Route 28 for commercial and mixed use. But what we're really concerned about is having too much residential development along Route 28 impacting available commercial land. So I think that's truly the key issue. And I think the key issue is we have few defined walkable village centers. You could elaborate on that for business growth or whatever if you want, but that's really that we don't have a lot of them. And then the fourth bullet down there, limiting larger developments to areas of municipal sewer. That's the conclusion, but the real problem is preventing further environmental degradation from new development or redevelopment. And this is just a rewording of it, talking about municipal wastewater, but to say need for a vision of what we want to see along Route 28 as municipal wastewater will encourage redevelopment. So that's our real concern, is we want to be sure that we have a vision in place for Route 28. And then just simplify the permitting process with more uses as of right. That's kind of a conclusion, so just kind of going back, permitting process is complicated with too many uses needing special permits, which is what the concern was. Need for more housing types and opportunities. I mean, we could expand on that. Mary Wagon asked that I take out inappropriate locations because everyone's version of appropriate locations for housing could be different, and she didn't want that to be misconstrued. And again, you could probably provide some more clarity, additional information on that if you wanted to with regard to housing types. But again, that comes in the action items, I think, very clearly. Need for more commercial and economic development opportunities in our business court. Again, that comes back down as to having more business uses by right. And then just talking about how, because this is under community design and land use, how I didn't know how to word the Matakes property, but the issue, it does offer this great opportunity for a variety of land uses. So I don't know if.
Any comments on these? I got a couple. One, again, I think the first bullet is more goal-oriented and is very, very broad.
Yep.
And necessarily isn't an issue. I'm not sure how others feel about that. And then on the second one, I thought that some of us don't have concerns about too much residential development on Route 28.
How about the impression?
Yeah, well, what I was thinking, because I think some people in town, there have been some really nice developments, and I don't think we want to say we're not looking forward to more of those kinds of things appropriately, but the language I was suggesting is balancing an appropriate mix of commercial and residential development along Route 28.
I think it's well said.
I think
Very
balance
good.
is a very nice way to describe it.
That's all.
Because there is a balance somewhere. As
We hope.
things change, it might go residential one day and commercial the next day, but it's a balance as projects come forward.
Joanne's going to give me your stuff.
Yes,
right
I
now.
am.
Did you have anything on the first one?
No, I just don't think I would strike it.
Oh, okay.
It's more of a goal.
Okay.
It's a goal. It sounds like a goal.
The last sentence in goal is promote growth in areas adequate. When they say balance growth, it's pretty.
It's the same
similar.
thing.
Yeah.
I think what do you think, Susan?
I like the way it is. Only because I have to tell you, I keyed on the phrase too much.
Which one are you on, the second bullet
No,
or the
concerns-
first?
No, concerns about having too much residential development.
Oh,
I keyed on the word too much. Right now, people do think there is a possibility we will have too much residential development. And
Not all
therefore-
people, not all
no,
people.
not, I don't,
But,
Is it concerns with ultimately having too much residential?
no, go ahead,
Sorry,
Susan.
Susan, go
Finish
ahead.
your thought.
Sorry.
Finish your thought. Sorry.
in the meeting that you and I were at, many people thought that what we have, and in fact, the Board of Selectmen has said now that they think what we have, we need to be conscious of the fact that we could get too much residential development and therefore not enough economic development. So concerns about having too much, I guess is, and what was your suggestion?
Balancing,
Balance?
yeah, because who's going to define what too much
And who's
is?
gonna define balance?
Well, at least
It's a
that's,
better word.
that's,
It's a better
more
word.
neutral.
It's a more neutral word. It is a more neutral word.
Yeah.
Then too much is actually,
It's a-
that's, you have an
That's an
impression,
action,
yeah,
right.
balance is better, but I do think that if we had left it, I don't think there would have been that much objection, because we did hear, at least that night, several, particularly the 6A folks.
Our table,
Yeah,
right.
they did talk about, we need to be, because they thought it was too much, the potential for the conversion of the motels. And so I would have been fine with that, but balance is fine. I just
Okay.
think it's a softer word. It's a softer word.
Okay.
But if we had left it the way it was, I don't think it would have been that detrimental.
okay.
Could you read yours again, Joanne?
Sure. Balancing an appropriate mix of commercial, and I put that first, and residential development along Route 28.
Okay.
You can even take, if you want to make it more bland, you can take out the word appropriate. Just say balancing, blah, blah, blah. I mean, balancing and appropriate are
You know
kind of
what?
all interlocked,
You're right.
but I'm just saying if that would help
I-
smooth it out.
Yeah,
If
make it
doesn't,
even
then
more
that's okay,
neutral.
Madam Chair.
I once worked for a guy who once said, if you don't need an adjective, don't use it.
That's right.
That's why less is more.
Like too much.
Strunk and white
Yeah.
is the same thing.
Yeah.
Easier than that.
Okay, so let's do balance,
Something to think about.
Balancing.
Mix of
balancing
commercial
mix
and
of, you'll do it right,
No, I
Kath.
think that's right. Balancing a mix of commercial and residential development along Route 28, which is kind of the concern that it gets balanced properly.
The other one I had was, again, it's a minor change, but the permitting process one, I thought it could start with, the issue is a complicated permitting process resulting in too many uses needing special permits.
Yeah. I think they're concerned about the whole permitting process being complicated, not just the fact that you need a special permit. If you look at
Okay.
our zoning bylaw with all our optional overlay districts, it's like an alphabet soup.
Yeah.
So I
Okay.
think,
Then we can let, I'm okay letting that stand. That's fine.
is that good? I just, the action item got modified, and I tried to modify this based on a comment that Ken had to better define and guide the desired development aesthetics of commercial and large-scale residential projects. To do that, revise and update the architectural and site design standards and consider making them, and I use the word applicable because I know that Jim was concerned about the word mandatory for new development, raise and replace, and for substantial redevelopment. I think what we're going to find out of the we'll talk about later in the meeting, the community planning grant, is you will kind of come up with those ideas. And what I would ultimately love to have is what people call a pattern book, which kind of lets people know that these are the types of patterns and types of developments that we like, so that you can go, oh, okay, if I develop it like this, I know that they're going to be happy about it. It's a little bit easier than just the words, because it shows you how nice it can be.
Great.
That's called something, Kathy, in planning. Isn't Barnstable doing that now?
Form
Form.
code is one way of doing it, yep. Sometimes form code, they're like, we don't care what's inside the building, we just care what it looks like on the outside. I think in Yarmouth, we do care what's inside the building. So we might be a little bit of a combination of the two, making sure that we're getting the design aesthetics and the standards and all of that kind of stuff clearly in our regulations, but then still acknowledging that we don't want this use next to that use and that type of thing, so.
Kathy, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
The consider expansion of the medical overlay district, do you think the public understands what that entails if we do an expansion?
No. And we're not going to, no,
Okay.
no.
so-
I think the public in general won't understand a lot of this, quite frankly.
Just saying, At some point, we'll have to explain, someone's going to have to explain
Exactly.
what that entails. Okay.
Right, but it's like, these are basic overarching
Yeah,
goals.
macro level.
We're going to get into if we were ever to do that, we would get into the nitty-gritty. There'd be so many public meetings on it, the public hearing, the whole process of changing zoning would be entailed with all of this. On the top of page 9, One of the things that Mary Wagon suggested is maybe we should consider a transfer of development right bylaw. Basically, one of those things, I don't know whether the horse is out of the barn here, because there's not a lot of land to protect, where someone could say, I want a higher density going on over here, but I'm going to buy the rights to develop over there, so it kind of balances out overall. I don't know how many opportunities we have for purchasing property, and I also don't know the cost implications to a developer. If we now say, well, you can get these extra bonus density units here, is it really worth buying them from over here and doing that? So it's just consider it. I think they had talked about it in the housing production plan in past years. I don't think it's in there now, or maybe it is in there now.
I
don't
thought
think
it was in, that's what I was gonna ask. I believe it's in there now.
Is it in there
That's
now?
what's- yeah.
Okay. Yeah, maybe that's why Mary mentioned it, because she was going
Right.
through the HPP as well. So that's why that's put in there. And again, a lot of these things are considered, look at, when, we may emphasize one thing over another and not really put too much effort into this. Or we may look at it in a cursory way and say, that's considering it, and we decided not to do it because of X, Y, and Z, and that's, we did it, we looked into it, so. Transportation and connectivity, this is another section that I've asked Amanda Lima, the town engineer, to take a very close look at and see if there's anything else to add. I don't know whether there's any public transportation key issues. I think they do a darn good job, and I can't think that the call and the app that they have and all of that is very, very good. It's just the nature of how we're kind of spread out a little bit. We're not Boston, where people, and they're not going to have a bus every 10 minutes. It's just the nature of where we are. Expanding routes then becomes, slows down other people getting access to the bus, so.
I know this isn't Yarmouth, but a key issue, and I don't know how you write it into this, but the key issue, I believe, has to be the bridges coming onto this island. And how it gets written into here, Kathy and Joanne, I'm not sure. But without those bridges, not the redevelopment of those bridges, everything we write in here is garbage. So,
Yeah, I don't know, is that an action item of supporting the,
I think that's how I would look at it, as an action item supporting the redevelopment of Sagamore and Bourne Bridge.
we can certainly add something in there.
I think it complements the one bullet that we have about the Bass River bridges over Route 6.
So do you want that to be an action item and saying we're supporting it, or is it a key issue of, or both, a key issue of,
Well,
our whole lifeline is those bridges?
Yeah, I mean, I look at it, this is just one person's opinion at this board, but I look at it as a key issue. Without a mechanism to get onto what we've made this man-made island, we have serious issues.
You fit it in here.
it may not be an act, for both of those, they're, for the Route 6 bridges, and it may not be action items that we can address, but maybe there's a way through various committees that, like the members of the board are on the, what's the transportation that does the tip? There's a whole committee that creates the tip every year.
Joint Transportation
Yeah,
Committee? MPO?
and Mark is on it.
MPO.
MPO, thank you. And so, you kind of push the responsibility there, that those representatives need to be aggressively pursuing these kinds of projects.
What about under key issues? What about saying something like recognize the importance of a safe, convenient,
Bus transportation system that's
yeah,
going to allow economic growth.
recognize the importance of an integrated transportation system that highlights the bridges or something like that?
Sure.
You're going to have to write some stuff down
But I mean,
and
is
send
that
it to me.
Is that the concept you wanted, sort of recognizing that those bridges, even though they're 20 miles away from us, play a key role in our own transportation system and our economic viability, for sure?
Exactly.
Just we're concerned about the impact of the Cape Cod bridges on our economic
Yeah,
viability.
and use the actual word recognize or acknowledge or
I think recognize would be the right.
recognize the importance of the impact the Sagamore Bridge and the Bourne Bridge have on
Our community.
our community.
Yeah, the economic viability of our community.
just wondering, this 11 items here, whether we have something that talks about supporting both the bridge replacement and the Route 6, the Cape Cod bridges, and then that. I don't know if we do. So we can add in another item that just says support both those things. I'll look around to see if I have it somewhere. I think I might have it under coastal resiliency and tidal for Route 6. Route 6, I think I might have it
You had
under.
the bridges under,
I think I might have the Route 6 bridge underneath coastal resiliency under, maybe not. I'll look around on that.
Okay.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Maybe this is the right place for it, too. Number 10 on page 10 is, I think we need to review potential locations and seek funding for installation of the permanent solar-powered radar speed signs. I think they're very effective, but I did hear from Chief Lennon, who also wants us to look about seeking funding for those additional mobile speed trailers, as they collect a lot more data. They only have one, and they have a lot of requests for them. So I added that based on his comments. And that we get into climate mitigation and energy. Again, I tried to maybe reword these things a little bit more. Key issues are the high cost of energy and need for energy conservation and efficiencies. Need to identify additional ways to reduce greenhouse gas emissions rather than just methods for reducing, and limited staffing for energy projects and initiatives. I don't know if anyone had any edits on that. If not, I'll move on to number 6, I think was mentioned at the last meeting. It's not just Mass Save, but it's also Cape Save that can do the weatherization and all of those other things. They're actually going to be links to Mass Save and Cape Save in here. It's in there now, you just can't tell, because it's redlined. I guess a minor rewording of regionalization of recycling composting may be more cost-effective, or for maybe more cost-effective, not effectiveness. No other changes on there. I guess on page 13, we get to.
I'm sorry, Kath, that's okay. I fell a little bit behind. On waste management on 11, I thought that, just a suggestion, shrinking capacity at the disposal areas for solid waste, blah, 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 is the issue, I think, and locations, capacity and locations maybe. And then I thought the third bullet was really like the first one and was more goal-like.
Okay, to take it out.
So take it out. That would be my recommendation.
Yep.
Kathy, do they have a plan for what the impact of the wastewater plant would be once the flow is, it's not needed as much as it's needed now? Because I know it needs to operate right at a certain capacity to be,
You mean with regard to
once we have the sewers
wastewater
and.
sludge? or-
Well, I mean, whatever the facility, the wastewater facility, not the wastewater.
Septage
the septic
facility?
plant, yeah.
I'm sorry, what's the question?
So if I recall going back many years, it needs to have a certain amount to operate efficiently. Maybe that's not true anymore. But I mean, once we have the sewers and the haulers aren't going there as often as they are, is that facility going to be?
Well, it's also a regional facility.
Yeah.
I
I-
don't,
nothing's
no one's mentioned anything like that to me, that it would be a concern. Because they had talked about adding that type of ability to treat septage at the wastewater treatment facility, but I think they decided to keep it separate for now.
In fact, isn't there an article on the town meeting warrant to replace the septage bins?
There is a
They've just
capital,
rotted,
there's a
basically.
capital plan to replace not replace, but to repair the existing collection facilities at that site.
Right.
The one thing Kathy touched on is even when our system, our
New system.
sewerage system goes online, that facility down at the town transfer station is a regional facility. Trucks from other towns that don't have sewage systems go there. And there's also a need, because you can't put grease into a sewage system. So there's gonna be a need for other types of collection, so that site will still be utilized.
I don't think we talk about the septic treatment facility in any way in a goal.
Well, it certainly connects to
Action.
the environmental,
And are you're thinking we
Activity.
should, Kath?
I'm wondering that.
Yeah.
connected to the wastewater permit, to the permit, and the the watershed permits, if I could speak appropriately. The whole
The
plan.
septic treatment facility?
Well, I mean, the plant and the whole concept behind sewering the town, full stop, is about watershed preservation.
Right, but I think the
So
question is
could it go there?
continuing with the regional transfer station
Oh.
maintenance and whatever, in order to continue to have that available for not just the town of Yarmouth, but the region.
Yeah, I mean, what the capital plan, that the money the town's
Capital plan.
investing, for that, the capital, because, I was on the capital budget, as you know, and the plan that's in place to repair that collection facility is a 20-year plan. So they're not looking to fix it and say, okay, we're shutting it down next year.
Right.
They're looking to keep it as a viable entity for the next 20 years. I think the one piece that, Will and Kathy and Joanne are touching on about the sewage system, if we don't mention it, the one thing that we should maybe mention is the fact that the whole goal of this is to denitrify our watersheds to allow those bodies of water to have better quality of life, so.
So maybe,
I think that kind of discussion kind of gets part of the existing conditions, because there's kind of like
Yeah.
all the statistics.
Yep.
And then there's the key issues, then what's the town working on right now?
but also you mentioned, it's on page 2 at the bottom.
Is it?
It's on page 2 at the bottom, very, right there. Page 2, on action number 3. Talks about RAC, talks about the facility, talks about,
Yeah, it's not the septic treatment facility, though.
sorry, my bad.
This is the sewage system.
Separate.
Oh, my bad. Okay, I got it. You want to relink that.
I just
Sure.
think it's a valid point, that it's something that we need to continue to invest in, at
We
least
are.
in the short term, while not only do we have a lot of septic tanks, but the region still has a lot of septic tanks.
But the region's also becoming more sewered. Once Dennis is sewered, Orleans is gonna be sewered, more of Chatham, more of Harwich, so, I mean, there's gonna be a lot less going into that plant over the years.
True.
Yes, but we'll take everybody's grease.
Yeah.
I mean, right? We'll be the place. Grease is the word. There's another old person reference.
Retirement grease, right? Isn't that?
Trust me, there'll still be plenty of areas, I don't disagree with Peter's comments, but there'll still be plenty of areas that still have a septic system,
And
so.
they need to be pumped regularly to be properly maintained.
right.
So it's important that we talk about that. I think that's a good point. Page 13, community systems. Again, just kind of rewording things about not fully tapping into our tourism opportunities and promotion of our cultural resources, historic sites, and structures. And then kind of the key issue is creating more public art. One thing that I did add in as a new action item is the Historical Commission applied for and received CPA funds to complete a townwide archaeological reconnaissance survey, which is really just to basically have more accurate archaeological sensitivity maps of Yarmouth's cultural and archaeological resources and artifacts. So that's something that's ongoing, so I just put that in there. I thought this was a good place for it with the cultural heritage.
Kathy, on number 4, is Simpkins have a P? I can't remember. I didn't grow up here. Simpkins School.
Yeah,
Okay,
thank you.
thanks.
And then on page 14, under key issues for the economy, Mary Wagon mentioned limited childcare options, which I thought was a good
Yes.
Yep.
one.
Great one.
Deirdre mentioned, not capitalizing enough on our mid-Cape location and abundance of family-friendly activities. I don't know if anyone had anything on page 14. Moving on to page 15, I do know that the whole discussion was at CEDC about community branding, and I do know that that was mentioned at our community meeting that we had in January, so I tried to expand marketing efforts to enhance community branding as well as promotion, outreach, and advertising for events and that type of thing. Number 6, I was talking to Mary Wagon about, and she was kind of talking about different type of incubator programs, and I said, well, how are we going to be able to do that? And she goes, well, we need more staff. And I said, okay, well, maybe we put it under item 6, where we're talking about additional staff focused on economic development, and then talking about maybe these incubator programs to help build industries in town. I do know as part of the MUC, there's been a lot of discussion about maybe that facility could turn, have some type of incubator facilities and/or work-live facilities and that type of thing. So I just wanted to be sure that we got incubator programs in there, because I do believe it was mentioned quite a bit. Number 9, I just broke that out based on a comment from Ken about the broadband and high-speed internet. I had it under CEDC below, because they had really been concentrating on it. I think this will also be something that gets mentioned elsewhere, but I highlighted work with, because I'm not sure what that actually means. What's the real action of working with regional partners to expand access to broadband and high-speed internet and improve competition and affordability? I know the commission did their regional kind of needs assessment, and they had some recommendations at the end. I don't know if we want to reference that in any way, or whether we're fine with work with regional partners to expand.
Yeah, I mean, just to touch on it, I mean, Kathy, so you know what I meant by it was, we do have a spine of broadband down Route 28, but there's still huge pockets of the town that don't have access to that high speed. And it's really about more availability, bringing it into other parts of the town. If we want to expand our business area as far as having light industry, they need high speed to make it work, so.
So that's Kate,
It's,
what is it? It's
Open Cape.
Oh,
Open
thank
Cape,
you.
thank you.
So you were looking at expanding the area for the Open Cape Fiber
That's right.
to other areas of town. Okay. I just don't know how that gets done and who does that.
Yeah, I mean, it's
What
been.
we do to make it happen.
I think part of it is the economic viability of the town, where industry or light industry wants to come here and needs it. That's where the demands. You got to have a reason for them to bring the fiber to you. And it's not, to me, it's not just Open Cape. It's Verizon, whoever else competitively wants to spend the money to bring fiber.
So maybe we just want to say expand high-speed internet to other areas?
Yeah, that's fine. I'm fine with that. It's an issue.
I think it's the affordability and competitiveness.
Oh, absolutely.
That.
I mean, when I was running hotels on South Shore Drive, we didn't have any high speed down there. So trying to do, credit card charges in the height of the summer was a nightmare,
Have to call it in like the old days.
It wasn't quite that bad, but
Bring the machine out.
believe it or not, we had an emergency action plan when the power went out to have those.
Yeah, exactly.
You had to.
Those carbon paper had to go somewhere.
Unless anyone has any comments, on page 16, Mary just wanted to identify that the affordability gaps impacts 30% of year-round households. And the key issue isn't just workforce, it's a limited amount of workforce housing. And then, the key issue is reaching the goal of 10% affordable housing on the SHI. I think we as a town have identified that we are trying to reach this 10%. Whether we will ever get there, I don't know.
Yeah.
But that's something there. And then I did talk a little bit, we had talked a little about being more specific, like when we're talking about different committees. So number 3 there, continuing to support the work of the Community Housing Committee and Affordable Housing Trust to reach the 10% goal through continued funding of the Affordable Housing Trust and staffing of a housing specialist. I think Mary does an incredible amount of work, and that her position is very important, and that all gets funded and kind of goes through these different committees here. And then on the top of the next page on 17, these all came, comments that were mostly from Mary. Number 7 is I continue to assess and create and execute a vision for the reuse of Matakees Middle School property and evaluate the potential for housing as one component of redevelopment. I wanted to put it here because I have it under the economy and I have it under the recreation, and it felt wrong not to have the same comment here. But then number 8 and 9 came from Mary about work cooperatively with housing developers and provide technical support with zoning, local regulations, town programs, and the state's local initiative program. And then the last one is continue to fund and provide housing counseling to the public, including homeownership repairs and rental assistance. So that's like the CDBG work that she does. I don't know whether we can maybe combine those all into one related to number 3, because a lot of this work is stuff that Mary does and staff does as part of their work, so. If people had comments on that. No comments, moving on. Under town services, Kevin Lennon said that the police shooting range was on its way, so that's basically completed, and to take it out as a concern. On the next page, again,
If I may, on that one, the fire training facility, has that been funded, Ken?
That's it.
Not yet.
it's also a regional facility.
right.
That was supposed to have been paid for by the county.
Yeah, but
By
it
the
still,
county,
it still
yeah.
hasn't been funded yet, so,
Okay, by the county.
by the county.
But the location is still opposite or behind the fire station on Buck Island? Potential location,
I'm not 100% on
Fire
that
station
one.
number 3 behind that.
behind it, okay.
I think I'm going to put in the word regional fire training facility, just so that that's clear that that's a regional. Did you have anything else, Joanne? No, okay. On page,
Other than in this section here on public safety, there's nothing from police. And there are no action items from police.
well, most of the action items that came out of the interview that we did with the police were related to the need for additional positions to be more effectively meet community goals and for public safety. I moved some of that under government because it doesn't just apply to the police and fire, it applies to every part of the town. So their main concern had to do with coming up with ways of being more competitive to attract and retain employees. I just expanded upon that and said in all departments and put that under government.
But when you think about the allocation of funding to police and fire, it's a significant portion of our town budget. And I'm surprised that Chief Lennon doesn't have, he may have a strategic plan like the fire department does. There must be some key issues about, drug dealing, about criminal activities, about things that are not good in town or things that are good in town.
There's been a
Where
huge
they
increase,
could, where
yes.
they're looking to expand their Facebook presence, where they want to have greater communication and transparency with the community. This is kind of off the top of my head now. I can think more about it and send you something, but I was surprised by the absence of action items and any key issues from the police.
Joanne, I'll just touch on it a little bit from spending a fair amount of time at the police department during the whole capital budget planning and stuff and talking about that. Number one, they do have a strategic plan that certainly could potentially be, portions of it, I'm sure, could be rolled into this. But I do know that their number one issue, Kathy, is being competitive salary-wise to attract new police officers. From a funding standpoint, they have police cars, they're getting, new specialized, pistols and all that stuff. But their biggest issue right now, as Kathy touched on, and he did touch on that, is that their biggest issue is funding for police, the new police officers.
It's
Retention and the hiring of new police officers is their number one issue.
Okay. But we also hear sometimes that they want more police because of issues that are arising where they need to address problems that percolate. It's just a general comment.
I think it's the need for additional positions to more effectively meet community goals and for public safety. Because that was one of the things that Chief Lennon had talked about, is he wanted these 2 additional supervisory positions that he was looking to have filled.
Kathy, as Joanne touched on, I think it would be a worthy comment to reach out to the chief and ask if you can get a copy of their strategic plan, because I do know there is one.
The
Great.
fire department did a great job, and it was on, I was easily able to get that. I'll see if I can Google the police one.
And also, the increase in the number of calls for police services that have to do with mental health issues has also caused the police department to hire, I think, at least 2 social workers.
That's a
that-
great
That they
point.
never had
Exactly.
in the last, I think, until
Exactly.
about 2 years ago. So I think I would imagine that would also be in there, Ken.
I believe-
Obviously, it's
yeah.
not number one compared to retention and attraction of the police force itself,
Certainly,
but
it's certainly right up there, Will.
that has certainly helped, literally has had to create staffing
Yeah.
positions that they never had before.
Yep.
Not to mention the retraining of current officers and staff in order to handle more mental health calls than they've ever had.
Susan knows about that a little bit. They work with NAMI, the police department, you
Yeah.
know?
I think if they have a strategic plan, I think that's very, very helpful to us, because this is not going to get into the nitty-gritty of the police department. It's not, and it really isn't intended to. The town services section is really, it's not required in the LCP. This is something that really came out of the visioning, that people were really concerned about these particular things. Most of the public safety from the community, as I recall, was very, very positive. Like, they're doing a great job. We love the police, we love the fire. They're doing a lot of good work. But let me see what I can find out about the police strategic plan. And I can also, you know, the interview with the police and fire chief were done at the very beginning. Those were one of the first interviews. Later, as I've gotten down, I narrowed down the questions to very specific. What are your 3 key issues? And what are they? Tell me. And then what are you doing to address these 3 key issues? And what are the things that you need to be addressing in the next 10 years? So I can talk to Chief Lennon a little bit more about that, and I'll look at the strategic plan and see if we can't do something about that. But I do think a lot of the concerns that they were expressing in the police and fire related to municipal government in general. So I moved a lot of that up to municipal government. Again, just some small edits there about increasing enrollment at DY. And then under government actions, about the modifying the town website. Ken had a great idea of, you know, as part of that web redesign, including opportunities for user testing and public feedback, so that we're creating a user-friendly website that's easy to navigate, which it needs to be intuitive. It's not really intuitive right now. And I think
I wish Jim was here tonight for that.
I think there's a lot of stuff that people search there, and they're getting old stuff. So I don't know how to get rid of the old stuff. Somebody was filling out a boardwalk plank for the Bass Hole one, and for the $150, and I'm like, no, sorry, no, we're not. We're doing something different now. And they're like, I'm like, how did you even get it? And like, I got it on the website, and I've looked for it. I'm like, I don't even know where they found it.
They probably just Googled it and came up. so.
You know, maybe they Googled it instead of going on the town. Yeah,
Right.
yeah, that's a good point. So there's a lot of those types of things, and then also, you know, I've been talking with Bill Scott, the assistant town administrator. We in community development have like a project page, but people don't know where to get to it. So we're talking about having one big project page that just basically has links, and then you can go to the sub-web pages of each of the topics and do that. So that was something that I think would be very helpful to people. The one thing that's been very, very clear, I think, in all of these processes and all these plans is people don't know all the great things that we have and all the great things that we do, and we need to do a better job of getting that.
And the fact that it is so not mobile friendly. I'll just keep
hopefully they're
saying it
working on that.
and saying it and saying it. It is
You're right.
actually mobile unfriendly. It is actually
They are
mobily and antagonistic. I mean, I can't speak to the desktop because, well, actually I can, but then it's not friendly for anybody. I don't know.
The problem with it, when the framework is, I don't even know how old it is, and they're just plugging stuff into an old framework.
Yep.
And it just becomes very cumbersome.
And it's certainly not your responsibility, Kathy, but man, that website needs to be blown up
Yeah,
and started.
that's why it's in here, because that's not a 5-minute job,
No,
and
it's not.
and it needs to have some serious money spent on it.
Yep.
You need to hire a
Yep.
web designer, and then you also need to train the rest of us.
Right.
Because I'm hacking away putting stuff on the town website.
At least you know
and
how
I
to
could
do
be doing
that.
stuff wrong that's
Right.
like adding to this weird background of old information I don't know.
there's so many better platforms than what that's even built on today. But I understand there's probably state regulations that the town has to meet and all that.
but there's
I think
other,
there's the basic grade of things, and then there's the elevated grade of
there's other
things.
Cape Town websites that are just superior to ours.
Most of
I
them.
think we could do better.
Yeah, I was trying to be nice about it.
No, it's,
Just-
you don't have to be nice.
I won't.
It's just
I've
gonna
been the
need to
least
be a
nice
Use it often,
about it.
it's terrible.
Sorry.
concerted amount of effort put into it, and a concerted amount of, and a significant amount of money. In order for that to be. But I feel like when I'm looking, like when we did the hazard mitigation plan survey, it's like, how do people want to learn about it? Well, how do you want to learn about this, that, and the other thing? We had everything listed, and it was the town website was the biggest one. And the second one was, direct email, so they sign up for like a direct email or something, like through Notify Me. But it's like, if we had a fully functional, very well, easy to navigate website, I think that would solve so many of our communication problems.
It would. Not to mention permitting, research,
Everything.
learning about hearings and being able to then look at the details when you file at the Conservation Commission. Well, what was the packet? All that
Yeah.
stuff.
Well, the great
Just
thing
goes on
about
and
that is that the links, the Laserfiche does help. So all the links are there for them. I happen to just attach it because we have smaller projects than they do. They couldn't possibly attach it. But they have the nice links, and you can go right into Laserfiche and see everything. So that Laserfiche has really helped a lot, so, for the public to understand. I just wish sometimes, like Old Kings Highway and stuff, they don't show anything. There's nothing, if you're in the audience, you don't know what they're looking at. You have no idea what they're looking at. So getting back to recreation, on page 20, I added a little thing about including beach amenities from Deirdre. And I think the planning board had some comments about not just the capitalizing the benefit of the golf courses, but also all of the Route 28 community parks, the West Yarmouth Park, and then the new Parkers River Landing. And that's, oh my God, is that it? Are we done? Is that it? We're done.
Any other comments? Thank you, Kathy. Great job. Excellent. Next on our agenda,
Wait.
Oh, Kathy,
I'm not
sorry.
ready for next agenda item.
Okay.
I'm still talking LCP. Just to kind of give you an update, the Affordable Housing Trust, we have the community planning grant, mixed-use analysis that we're working on. The Affordable Housing Trust had asked for kind of an update on that because they were providing the $25,000 match for it. Included in your packet, the actual memo that I sent to them. I think we've talked a little bit about the additional supplemental services that BSC Group is working on. They're going to be doing the benchmarking for us. And they're also going to be looking at our regulations, and then they're going to be coming to us in June. The benchmarking needs to be done by April because that's something that needs to be done for the next consultant. We put out the next page of that is we had put out a request for cost quotes to do additional work, to develop a program for mixed use, and then come up with some layouts and different renderings for a small, medium, large hypothetical lot. And then also trying to get together with some type of panel discussion on a fiscal feasibility assessment. I think that's something that Bill Scott knows a bunch of people. So if we could get people in a room who are successful at doing mixed-use projects, they can help us identify what made it successful for you. What was the thing that helped you? Was it some type of tax credit? Was it some type of zoning that helped you? What made your project financially viable? Because I think we have a lot of people who might want to do mixed use, and it's just not as financially viable. So one of the things that you have in the packet, not in the packet, but I gave it to you on the dais, was a project understanding that we, or the proposal that we received, and we're very lucky to get one from Union Studios, and they were also working with Horsley Witten, who helped us with the VCOD back in the day, with some of you may remember, and their scope of services is in there. So they're talking about having a kickoff meeting and a site walk, and then they also are going to start developing some of these programmings for different type of mixed use, and going to need to come back to you guys to kind of finalize what we're looking for, so then that they can start working on the conceptual design and layout plans. What this gets me to is the benchmarking from BSC Group kind of is what Union Studios is going to be using to kind of move forward a little bit. So the benchmarking needs to be done according to the contract by the end of April. So I'm hoping maybe we might be able to have an April 30th planning board meeting so that Jeff can zoom in and go over the different benchmarking. He's probably going to have like 8 project profile sheets. Because things are going very quickly, we probably won't have them, I'm hoping we get them the day before, so they won't necessarily get to go in the packet too much, but it might be something, at least we can take a look at, identify think about. So I guess a couple asks are, whether April 30th might work for you guys, and hopefully we can have quorum. And then the other thing that Jeff asked is, when I'm talking to you guys tonight, could you ask them to think of any mixed-use developments or buildings that they like or have seen elsewhere, either on or off Cape? Just simple ideas like there's a great one in downtown Harwich, or I saw one in Hudson. So I sent him something from a mixed-use development in Hyannis that he had already had, but there's also 2 really nice mixed-use buildings on Main Street in Harwich, and I sent him pictures of it and the addresses of it. So just, if you know of something that you like what it looks like, just get that if we can get that information to Jeff by Monday. I'm on vacation next week, so I think all of you have Jeff's email. I've copied him on all of our emails that go out. So if you have any ideas, just always copy me, but you can go directly to Jeff. I just don't want it to be sitting in my inbox when he would like to use it to keep moving forward.
Kathy, does Mark have plans? Remember the Tasty Buffet site in West Yarmouth? The guy was gonna move the commercial kitchen supply, thank you,
Yep.
to that property and also have mixed use upstairs, have units upstairs?
Yep.
I remember they presented in front of us, and I thought it was in a.
Yes.
We have that?
Yes. What I've done also is I have provided them with either larger projects that are either permitted or have been constructed in like the last 10 years, so that they can do up like little maps of kind of saying, these are some of the things that are happening on Route 28 already. I think you had talked about a little bit about how no one really knows what's going on all these different things, and they go, oh, that's coming along, I didn't know that. So they're going to put that together in some mapping for us to identify that, and that's one of them that's there. And I've included some, the Laserfiche link for them so that they can get a better idea of what the project looks like. But yeah, they need to go, they came to us and got our approval through the road, but now they need to go to the ZBA.
Right. Certainly a huge example of its Mashpee Commons of mixed use, but I'm sure that pieces of that can certainly be done, in certain locations in town. They don't have the site for another Mashpee Commons, but, a small piece somewhere in the appropriate spot, I think would look wonderful.
We have 70 acres in West Yarmouth.
So Kathy, you're asking us to put a hold on April 30th?
Yes.
Okay.
If that's something, and maybe we can poll people to see, make sure that we'll have quorum for that, because that's to keep things moving and because this community planning grant ends at June 30th. So this BSC supplemental work as well as the Union Studios needs to be done by June 30th. So we can't hold them up in any way. So in general, I think in May and June, we're going to need to probably have some extra meetings. So if you can keep your Wednesdays free, that would be really helpful, because we're going to have a lot of things that they're going to be looking for input from the planning board on in those 2 months. But June 30th, I think, is something we really need to move forward with the benchmarking. Kind of doesn't have to be perfect, but we got to say, okay, these are the types of projects that we're looking for and talking to BSC Group, because then Union Studios needs to use that.
Did you say June 30th?
I'm sorry, did I say June 30th?
Yeah.
That's when the entire project needs to be completed. The next meeting I'd like to meet is on April 30th. And I get my months all mixed up now. I'm surprised I didn't say March 30th. I don't know what day of the week it is.
Could we revisit this at the end of the meeting when we talk about future meetings?
Sure,
And
I
then
just
we-
didn't
then
want
we
to
can
forget
pull out
about
the
it,
phones and look at the calendars and all that.
Sure.
Thank you.
as long as you can all remind me.
I will.
And then the other question, I don't know
Workshop.
whether Will was here, but for the whole thing, is if you know of any great mixed-use projects, just send them along to Jeff and copy me on them, and he'll take a look at them and see how applicable they might be for a benchmarking project. I really like the ones in Harwich. They look really, really nice. I don't know the details on them, but I sent that
I
along.
just read about one in Harwich on Main Street. That is,
Two on Main Street there. One is the Main Street Liquors, and then the Food Mart.
Yeah,
They
this-
did a great
there's
job.
another one.
They did a really, the buildings look great, and they have the housing on top, and it looks really nice.
Great.
Okay, and, yep. So, like I say, if you look through the scope from Union Studios, they're gonna be looking for input from you guys and me and staff and stuff throughout that process, hoping to be all completed by June 30th. I think that's it.
So Kathy, on the scope, You're talking about the Union Studios Horsley Witten that you gave us, right? Okay.
Yep.
And this has already been awarded? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm really, really happy. I think they're a good combo to have. We were lucky.
Sorry to cut you off there. I had this under correspondence.
Oh.
Anything else on this, Kath, for now?
No, I
Okay,
think
great.
that's everything.
So, moving on to the next item on our agenda, the Matakees Utilization Committee.
Not about that.
Any updates on meetings or?
Do you want me
Did
to
you
go,
wanna talk?
Kath? Yeah, sure. Last night we had open space. I thought, as I commented before the meeting gets started, it was a very good meeting. You know, certainly there was some discussion, I'll call it fairly spirited discussion on a couple things. You know, one of it was there is a vernal pool at the Matakee site, which totally kind of changes setback a little bit from right now, which is the edge of the current Matakees building. As long as, the way I understood it, and correct me where I'm wrong, Kathy, as long as whatever gets redeveloped there is, if it doesn't change ownership, it could basically go exactly, because that does meet the 100-foot setback from that vernal pool. But if for some reason the redevelopment meant new ownership, like the town was to sell the property to Will, and Will was gonna redevelop it, then you'd have to meet a 200-foot setback from that vernal pool. But beyond that, you know, I thought those discussions were pretty open. You know, certainly they would like to see, when I say they, the Open Space Committee would certainly like to see, you know, the old buildings be bulldozed and native plants put there and nothing be done with the site. And respecting their comments, I certainly pushed back a little bit on that. But it was open. Really, I thought what they put down as points that they want to make sure that the other committees use as a baseline and whatever gets developed, I thought were very fair and very reasonable in their asks. And that will be published by Brittany next Monday. I think she said she'd have them done and they'll be on the MUC website at that point.
Yep.
This process is literally the definition, Madam Chair, of competing interests.
Yeah.
It very much is.
And they're all legitimate because they're all coming from their point of view,
Mm-hmm.
and they're all championing, you know, their particular point of view, and that's a good thing. And the funnel process, I think, has actually been quite interesting.
Yeah.
And I can say that, and I'm a guy who hasn't even met yet. But I do find it
Probably won't.
fascinating. No, I just find it fascinating, and I hope it's been healthy for those of us on this committee that have sat
Yeah,
through them, and
I-
I know most of you have. I hope that's been a good thing.
Absolutely. I mean, I think one of the things, for example, that was discussed last night, which I found very interesting, was all the roof drainage on the current school and some of the stormwater drainage, not in the parking lot, but actually there's some drainage in the back of the building, actually flows directly unimpeded into that vernal pool. And I guess when it rains very heavily, it's like a fire hose going into that vernal pool out back, which can damage, you know, plant life and, you know, beings of some sort, like spotted salamanders.
All kinds of things.
Anyone else have updates?
Well, Joanne, you and I were both involved in housing, but I did bring along this, where'd I put it now? This one page, we had the final meeting. See, you haven't had any, and housing has had 3. And this is the, here, you pass it down. I guess all of them, yeah. This is what we sort of came up with, or wasn't very involved, I'm just learning. But it's been approved by the Affordable Housing Trust, and then we met, I think it was just yesterday, well, 2 days ago, and made a few small changes that Mary was going to take to make it final. And the changes were pretty minimal. And this is the suggestion that these types of housing would be put primarily in the northeast corner where the school buildings are currently.
You mean the Mattakey School, not the
Mattakey
Emmy Small
School.
School? Okay.
Right, the
sorry.
Mattakey School, tear down the buildings and build these different parts of, sections of housing. And I don't know, it's pretty well defined here, all,
Do you have an extra one?
yeah.
I got one more here.
I got it. Kathy, please. You're welcome.
Sorry, Kathy, I didn't pass it both ways. And was there anything else? Oh, and the other thing, no, that was all I think I,
Deirdre, no ownership options in here?
yes, the ownership are these affordable homes. Those are ownership.
The six?
Six affordable homes or 12 in the larger.
Did you say how many acres was this the entire site?
No, this is, it's estimated to fit on the location where the Mattakey School is now, leaving the gym in place, but take down the other buildings. I think that's how they worked it out.
It is interesting. Go ahead, Ken.
No, well, you go, and
Well, you brought up a really good question, Susan. Which is, when you look at this proposal, and again, I know there's been a ton of work being put into it, it is so heavily skewed towards rental that one of the things that we struggle with from this board and all the other boards we sit on is the ability for folks to own their own home, which increases the possibility that they can then stay on Cape Cod, period, full
Yeah.
stop.
Yeah.
And stop the chase and the dance of the rental market. And so it is interesting that this proposal, is, I can only do basic math because I grew up where I grew up, but it's 10%, less than 10% is ownership, but 90% of it is rental. It feels like that is the opposite of what I thought.
We need rental.
I don't disagree.
Yeah,
I'm
we
just
need
I'm just one guy. So I know that this has been vetted by much more intelligent people that spend way more time dealing with the housing issue. I'm just surprised that there isn't more of a percentage towards home ownership, which to me is about long-term sustainability and for families and for employees who end up here. I'm just surprised. It's not a big deal, but well, actually, it's a medium deal, I would say, but we'll see what happens throughout the muck process, Deirdre. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and these municipal employee rental units
Right.
it was pointed out that they should be limited to 3 years, so that they're for new employees to have the option of renting, and that's kind of to help attract people to the town, but limited to 3 years so they could try and find ownership housing.
And by the way, I just want to point out, like this, if something like this happens, it would still be a good thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, I'm not arguing that we shouldn't do anything related to housing at the Mattakey site, but as the debates continue and the conversations and the mucking continues, Madam Chair, I just think it would be interesting to hear the conversations about rental versus ownership as it relates to the other issues that we're all interconnected with as planning board members about the viability of the Cape, whether it's the bridges or anything else. All these things are interconnected. And for people to get off the hamster wheel of renting, I would imagine, as someone who is fortunate enough not to be on that hamster wheel, that's got to be this is a huge opportunity to get some people off of that and to really stabilize a bunch of folks that would really appreciate the opportunity to be stable. Sorry, Madam Chair, I'm off my high horse now. I'm dismounted.
It's very, very expensive to create affordable, single-family homes. I think that the 6 affordable homes, I think the idea was always that we would be partnering with Habitat, who's a great partner, but that involves a significant amount of volunteer time and free materials and all of that, that actually makes it financially viable. We would be basically providing the land kind of situation.
I mean, the cost of private development today and building a home, the only way it would work to keep some sort of market rate numbers down would have to go the rental route.
I get it.
You know, the cost today to build a home is about $600 a square foot. Do the math out. Then, if a private developer is gonna make money at it, the number has to be X. Otherwise, they're not gonna do
What's
it.
the average size of a home now? Is it still 1,200 square feet?
You could tell that better than I
1,550,
could.
something like that?
Yarmouth?
New construction?
Yeah.
18,
Is it that
19.
much?
Yeah, I think so. If you're going to build new
Full
construction,
3 bedrooms and 2 baths, basically, right?
at least 3.
At
Times
least
600 a
about
square foot?
1,800.
600's a good
That's
strong
not
number.
counting, land acquisition cost or anything else. That's just to build the physical site, once you own everything else. And that's just a baseline number. It goes up from there. 600 square foot doesn't get you a lot today. But you could do the math pretty quick, what it cost you.
Anything else on,
I was gonna, one more comment.
Yes, Peter.
Remove, one of the bullet points, remove solar panels off-site now to avoid delays. Do you have information on the solar panels? Because I haven't heard anything.
I can touch a little bit on that, too. The solar panels can be moved, but they are a bonded site, and the bond was 20 years, I think, on the panels. So there's an issue with that would have to be resolved before they can be moved, but you'd have to resolve the bond before they can get moved.
Do you know how many years they're into the bond?
I don't know.
I think
Kath?
it started in 2014,
That did come up.
but it's guessing.
And somebody pointed out that the intention would be to take them down now, because apparently they're not being used since the school closed.
No.
No, that's not true.
That's not true? Okay, I misunderstood that.
The electricity produced on those panels goes back into the grid. So they weren't put there just for the schools.
So, and then they were talking about putting them back when there's new construction on the site. But then someone pointed out that they are halfway through their lifespan now, so that might not be very feasible.
It's always something.
I think maybe what they were thinking of is those solar panels were actually permitted as an educational use to the schools, and they wouldn't have gotten the permit if it hadn't been on school property, and they didn't have a program of how they were going to be using them. I don't know whether that was the middle school people using it or not. So maybe that's what you're saying, it's not being used, maybe that's what they were thinking of, for educational purposes. I don't know how the elementary school level is doing a lot of educational usage of that.
okay, anything else?
Susan has something. You were supposed to meet today. All right, municipal services were supposed to meet today and look at things, but because the Zoom link was down, they didn't meet. So I think you're going to be meeting on the 24th. And then the actual muck committee met on Monday.
Big muck.
Big muck.
The big mucks, the big mucky moves.
Muckety mucks.
It rates itself, Madam Chair. I don't know. Yes.
And BSC Group was there, and they went over their scope of services, and they had some questions and answer period.
They give an update on sort of where we are in the timeline and when some of the next, like, when, are we 6 months away from some big glorious presentation to the select board? I don't know.
Well,
What do you think?
I don't know if
Yeah,
it's
I'm-
glorious, but
I'm trying to make it a positive. I don't-
there's going to be multiple presentations to the select
From
board
each
as you
of
go,
the-
as you go through. One of the things that they're going to be talking about at the next MUC meeting in May, they meet I think it's like the second Monday of every month, is reviewing questions for a survey. We've got all these ideas, we've kind of narrowed it down, everyone's kind of got some ideas. What does the general public think of these? And so they're going to be working on a survey that can go out, get some information from that.
Of the three, of whatever the ideas that have been funneled.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
that's
And then
what
there'll
they're
be a
serving.
big other, are there anything, that you think that would, and it might be some of the other ideas we've already heard that have been, discarded because of this, that, or the other thing. And then they're going to start looking, all the different teams will at that same point be funneling down to their one. I think the survey will be a little bit more generic and probably talk about some of the three things. And then they're going to start, laying stuff out and coming up with concept things. And we're supposed to be having, I think, actually before they do that, I think at the end of June, at the June 26th, this room might end up getting booked, to kind of give some type of presentation of where we are, what the ideas are from the different teams, and kind of where they go from there. Get that public input, and then based on that, start developing maybe some layouts and some concepts.
Go away for a while, then come
To
back.
go away probably for a lot of the summer kind of thing,
Okay.
and work on that, and then come back in the fall.
Thank
They're-
you,
they're-
that was helpful.
They still look like they're going to be done through, at the end of the year, but they're only going through, and I think Bill had 7 phases, they're only going through 5 phases. They're looking for some additional funding to do the, more detailed financial analysis and that type of thing. But once an idea is picked, then we'll go super deep into the finances and viability of it.
Got it.
Thank you, Kathy.
Yep.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
The next item on our agenda are planning board application and document fees.
Oh, yeah. All right. This kind of came to me anyway, out of the blue. I think that they were I saw it on the agenda, but I thought it was like some department was interested in looking at fees. Not that everybody was supposed to be looking at their fees. So the select board talked about it on April 1st as a general talkie talk. But they're actually going to have a public hearing for the first reading on May 6th. A bunch of other departments in community development, we kind of met together, are going to have proposed some modifications to their fees. One of the things that we did do as a department was how each, the Old Kings Highway, zoning, Concom, planning, how we did the legal ads and how it got paid for, as well as the abutter notification, varied between all of us. We did some analysis and kind of said, what does it typically cost to do the legal ad and to do the abutter notification? I mean, basically, it looked like it was about $50. So instead of having a separate line item, having to keep track of all of that, having to make sure, for us, it was like make sure that the applicant paid the bill and all of those things, we just included it into the application fees. So at least $50 of a lot of these are because of that. And it's anything that requires a butter notification and a legal notice was the additional $50. And then I did a very simple math, I believe. I couldn't find any documentation as to when the last time the fees were done, other than I do know that the Scenic Roads was done in 2011. I think this was 2011. I know it hasn't been done since I've been here since 2012. So it's just taking the inflation rate, Googling that from 2011 to 2025 is about 40%. So all I did was take the 250 times the 1.4, add the 50, and I came up with a $400. So and the same thing with the $75 for each lot times the 1.4. Obviously, don't need to add the 50. That came up to 105. So this is just a very simple, basic way of getting on par of what we were getting back in 2011. We do not make a lot of money. Our fees are not significant. We don't have that many applications. Typically, we're probably closer to 2,500. When we had a whole bunch of stuff going on related to the Davenport subdivision, I think that was our biggest year, like $5,000, and that was like our big money. So any changes isn't going to have a huge change to the town of Yarmouth's bottom line in any way, shape, or form, but it does bring things up a little bit more because of inflation. There's 3 different permits that we do not charge anything for. They're kind of highlighted there. The VCOD site plan review charges nothing now. I'm proposing $350. That does not require a butter notifications, so maybe that could be $300. Private road name change. The vast majority of the time, that's a vanity project. We should get a fee for that. We have to do the public hearing. We have to do all this stuff. Design Review Committee, we don't charge for that now. I kind of don't think we should charge for it. It's up to you guys, but I just feel like I want people to feel comfortable coming, because sometimes that's one of the more initial things that come in, and we can kind of help mold them and put them in the right direction. And so I probably end up costing them a little money on my ideas anyway, and the Design Review Committee's ideas, so we don't want to charge them for a fee. So that's why I put $0 down there. The only other thing that I didn't change is you'll see at the bottom under notes, note 1, it has related to do with, I'm sorry, where is that one? Oh, it has to do with subdivision rescissions, and I don't know why they're so expensive. If the subdivision is greater than 2 years old, they were charging significantly more money, $600 plus $275 per lot. That can end up being pretty expensive for just something that was done only 2 years ago. So I don't know whether we want to, I didn't mark it up at all because I thought it was kind of high as is. And I don't even know whether you want to go back to what it was for just a regular subdivision rescission and not have it be specified based on, if it's over 2 years or not. So that's it in a nutshell. One more thing. We need to decide tonight because I need to get any of these changes to Mary Alice basically after this meeting so that they can get it to the Cape Cod Times in time to publish it on Tuesday, so that it's 14 days before when they would have their first public hearing.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Just a quick comment, Kathy, and just a little clarification. I notice on the proposed changes, you don't have plus advertising costs on like, you know, any of the ones down the lower part of the page. Is that on purpose or just an oversight?
No, it's on purpose because we're doing the lump sum of $50, so I added the.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think the increases based on the, if it was 2011, these prices were based on, I don't think the numbers are outrageous. And as you're well aware, the cost of advertising, no matter what it is going through the roof, because it's.
We get a good deal, like
okay,
most of
you
our.
got a good deal today, so.
Right, and I think that was going to be like one of the caveats that gets put in our cover letter is as long as, Gannett Publishing continues to, and they've been very generous of keeping, I think, these costs down for municipalities. But if those were to change, then we would have to modify the
As long as
fees.
that's there. I don't think they're outrageous
Yeah.
price changes,
Any-
Madam Chair.
any
Do you
comments?
want a motion, or do you want to just have a general discussion first, Madam Chair?
I'm sorry?
I have a motion.
Do you want one?
We need a motion.
Yes, I think it would be great if you would just,
Sure.
yep.
May I have a motion to recommend said changes in the planning board fees that Kathy has presented us tonight on the proposed charges that we recommend to the select board?
Second.
Any discussion?
You were the first, you gave the motion? Or-
Yeah. No, may I have a motion? No.
So Susan, you,
Oh, I thought you were making
No,
a
no.
motion. Okay.
No. Susan made the motion.
and hopefully you'll give that to me.
I'll move that the change,
If we're going to change something, why don't we talk about it?
I was gonna say are we gonna change it?
No, we're not going to change anything. Let me start again. Sorry.
Do we want to, I just don't want to have a motion and amended a motion. It's just cleaner if we decide
No,
what
we're
we
not
want
going
to
to
do.
make any changes to the table. So may I have a motion to recommend said changes contained in the table that we discussed this evening on proposed increases in charges for fees and permits, and recommend those changes to the select board. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second. Okay. I was
Any
wanted to give
discussion?
Ms. Britta the opportunity, Madam Chair.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Sorry about that, sorry. No, not anymore. Next on our agenda, meeting minutes. May I have a motion to accept the minutes of April 2nd, 2025?
We have two sets.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Start with November 6, 2024,
Sorry.
Madam Chair.
Oh, my apologies.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes of the planning board meeting of November 6, 2024.
Second.
Any discussion?
This is before Deirdre's time.
Yeah, I can't.
All right.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
And so it's one abstention.
Yes.
You're good at being a clerk.
I would like to make a motion to accept the minutes of the planning board meeting of April 2nd, 2025.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous.
Kathy continues her streak of excellent minutes, Madam Chair.
They really are quite
I
good.
won't call her the.
My
Ca-
retirement
I
job,
won't
just
call
gonna
her
do
the.
minutes.
I won't call her the Cal Ripken of minute taking, but she's getting up there. That's a high compliment.
Okay,
Okay.
appreciate that.
Any committee updates from members?
Madam Chair, I have one, but Peter, you sounded excited.
No, I'm not excited.
Okay, you're not excited.
I mean, I did hear that Karen Green is leaving April 30th, so I was gonna ask if there was sort of anybody come forward yet? Any sort of plan?
No
or-
one's mentioned anything to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, Karen Green, Director of Community Development, is moving on to greener pastures. I think she's going to
Really?
be working at the Barnstable Land Trust with Kelly Grant. So Kelly stole her. So, but she's going to be working like 20 hours a week, hopefully. She has generously offered to continue to work like 10 hours a week here, and I'm hoping, and I think the town administrator's indicated he's interested in having her do that. I think that would be so helpful and very generous of her
Yes.
to offer that. just the continuity, and she can even help, when someone gets hired, because I don't know her job. I barely know my job. We don't have a lot of.
Don't say that.
You know your job pretty well.
We just,
Well,
I just don't have there's not a lot of bench depth, so there's everyone does their own thing, and that's what happens when someone leaves, then it becomes difficult to fill in because of that. So having her there for that backup would be amazing, so. But I know they've advertised the job, but I have not heard about anything about any resumes. I'd like to think I'd be on the interview team, but no one has approached me at this point.
April 30th, Kathy, that's her last day.
Yes. Yeah.
That's next week.
No, it's the following week. 2 weeks.
Soon.
2 weeks.
2 weeks from tonight, right?
It's soon, yeah.
Sad news.
Did you also have a committee update?
No committee update.
Okay, well, I have one, Madam Chair. The Wonderful World of RAC. We met on April 7th, and I'll just start with the most pressing thing, which is there's still no resolution on the final location of pump station number 2, which is part of contract 6. So we churn along and have faith in our leadership team at the town of Yarmouth to negotiate a resolution there. We still have a few months left, well, maybe a couple of months left to kind of figure it out so that it won't delay any possible fall start, but we'll see. Okay. In terms of the work that is going on now, the plant work is happening, in case anybody has driven by. I don't know if you have. But there's mobilization, there's stuff happening. The plant, believe it or not, is being constructed. A couple updates about.
Nancy Lennon.
Oh, hi, Nancy. Nancy's very concerned about the
Poor
RAC
Nancy.
committee, Madam Chair. She has to interrupt me. Okay, it's all right. Nancy, your passion has been noted for the record. Okay, contract 2, just want to update, I guess, in general, just to talk a little bit about work that's happening this summer, because there will be work this summer. There will be no work on Route 28, as we know, because it's a state road. However, there will be summer work on the pump station at Old Main Street, going that direction. There will be work on contract 3 this summer, South Shore Drive, the side streets.
Okay.
Will be happening through the summer. So I apologize in advance, but it is what it is. Contract 4, so the work they had to do at the intersection of 28 and Old Main will be done by Memorial Day. However, and this is going to be the most interesting, and the most interesting will be that they're still going to continue working at the bottom of Station Ave and Old Main through the summer. So yeah, compute that into your brain as you think about driving to the end of Station Avenue and you have that little merge and you can go left or right. Well, there's going to be a party going on with our contractors all summer long. And
Well, I guess my street will be used,
yes, Madam Chair, we
the cut-through.
make it a policy not to know each other's home addresses. Anyway, it's for the best. So at the end of Station Ave where it hits Old Main Street,
North Main.
sorry, North Main, my apologies.
Right there.
Yeah.
There's going to be a party. There's going to be a Robert B. Hour
Gonna be
party.
making U-turns and
There's
then
going to be all kinds
going
of
to
stuff
Highland
going on.
Ave.
I certainly
and then
hope they
going
have the
down
road
Bellevue.
detoured before you get to that point.
I think that is my understanding, and Jeff Colby and why can't I think of her name? The other nice lady.
Lori.
Thank you.
yeah.
Laurie, they say they have a plan, they say they're gonna communicate it. I apologize in advance to all my friends that live and, including Madam Chair.
Time for yard
Who are
sales.
gonna be, right. I mean, lemonade stand, Madam Chair, let's make let's make lemonade out of the situation, literally. So I just wanna give you all a heads up on that, you may wanna tell your friends and neighbors. Let's see. Other stuff has to do with Bayberry Hills. Still ongoing work with Mass DEP. The good news is Kathy loves hearing about grants. We got a nitrogen-sensitive area grant from our friends at Mass DEP, so they're not all terrible, for $150,000 to help pay for the monitoring and the drilling that we had to do to kind of make sure that where we want to put all this, I'll just say water, is actually appropriate. So they're going to help pay for it through June 30th, I believe. And there have been some test holes and studying going on. It's quite a party over there. More partying. The last thing is that we started to talk about is Phase 2. And
geez.
I don't believe there's going to be any discussion, or, sorry, any special town meeting vote is at least a year away, maybe 18 months away. However, I would just put it out there to everybody that what you see as Phase 2 on the boards everywhere is not necessarily where Phase 2 is going to be. And before you start ringing your own alarm bells, some of this is not really up to us because of the watershed permitting. Because when it was proposed X number of years ago, and the density and the usage and the flow, all these things are constantly shifting. And of course, the number one job for this whole project is to help make our estuaries healthier. And so we have to start talking about Phase 2, because at some point, we're going to have to go back to the citizens of Yarmouth to pay for it. And we then can't just come back to the citizens and say, well, it's going to go over there. We have to have a little more of a precise location. So it's going to take several months for this committee to work with the town officials and our consultants to make sure we're meeting the needs of the permitting, the watershed permitting, as well as balancing all the other little nuances when you start thinking about Mattakese Use Committee, when you start thinking about libraries, when you start thinking about, I'm just going to say it, the project on Forest Road. There's just a lot of moving parts that both intersect with the sewer plan, and also the sewer plan influences those projects as well. So fascinating times on the RAC, not just managing what's currently happening and is being done, I think, to a very fine degree by our town staff. But I think now some of the more, what I consider to be intriguing work is about how do we manage all these competing interests as an advisory committee, but still the ones that spend the time to work on it. And I think with our engineers and with our town staff, we will certainly come up with a plan for Phase 2. But I'd just like everybody to know that the process has started about thinking about where it's going to go. And obviously, if you all would like to participate, or folks that you know, or organizations that you work with would like to participate in those conversations, I think we're still another month or two away from having real substantive ones, but they're on the horizon. So if you'd like to participate, we meet the first Monday of every month at the DPW from 4 to 5 p.m. And it's on Zoom as well. So I know that was a lot, but I think it's an important update in terms of just where we are in the big picture.
They say
Thank you, Madam Chair.
when they're gonna stop for the summer, June 1st, June 15th?
It's everything I've been told is Memorial Day. So in terms of Route 28,
Yeah,
Memorial Day.
they went into June last year, that's why.
Yes, but that's because they negotiated with the state and they said, if you can just give us 2 more weeks, we're gonna be able to do more. I haven't heard that they're gonna be doing that this time. Everything we've been told is Memorial Day. But I will come back and share if that changes, because we'll have a meeting in the first week of May. So I'll be able to talk to you, everybody here, and give you more news as I have it.
Thank you, Will.
You're welcome.
Joanne, can I ask just one question?
Sure.
I hope I know the answer.
No, just a question. Do you know if they're gonna do any more temporary resurfacing of 28?
Yes, well, you know what, that's a really good question. That question it gets brought up at every single meeting, and I think it's fair to say that Jeff and Laurie are doing a dance, especially with especially with Rivoli in West Yarmouth. And it isn't, I would say my answer is, it's not clear if there's going to be further paving before Memorial Day.
Okay.
It's not the answer I wanted to share, but and I'm glad you brought it up. However, unclear is like a magic 8 ball. It does mean it could also go the other way, which it could turn out to be a positive.
Right.
But I don't have anything definitive.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. Anything else? Yes.
I
Deidre.
have a little more we had a housing committee meeting Monday, and in addition to, most of the discussion was the muck information that I just shared, but there was also a presentation from Habitat for Humanity, and you folks are probably all familiar with this project, but it's new to me that there is under consideration a plan to put 6 Habitat houses almost across the street from here. So they just went over the nature of the houses. They would be small 2 and 3 bedroom houses on 2 different designs, and that the process is very long because there are so many application processes and home interviews and a lot of different things that go into setting up a habitat community. And it was very interesting. I don't know how much I should have paid more attention to share with you, or how much, I don't know if I can answer any questions, but I could try.
Madam Chair, can I ask a quick question?
Of course.
I did listen to the select board meeting last night, and I think it's on the town meeting warrant, is that there's going to be a town common study on the meeting, on the town meeting warrant. And the town common,
Commons is-
proposed town common area is basically across the street.
Yeah, and this is
So it'll be
next to it.
interesting, right, but it'll
Yeah,
just be
it'll be
interesting to
interesting,
see as
yeah.
that process goes on,
It will.
how all these things interact.
Yeah.
I'm not assuming anything passes or doesn't pass the town meeting. That's beyond my purview. But I do think it'll be interesting for you to
Interesting.
pay attention to
Yeah.
as it relates to that project.
And then one other thing is that the select board is having a housing workshop next week that you've probably all heard about. So,
It's on the 22nd
22nd,
at 6
yeah.
PM in this room. And I think there's going to be representatives from different organizations that are, do you have the draft?
somewhere in here, I brought it, yeah. It's going to be the Donahue Institute and the Affordable Housing Trust, and then Barrett Planning about the muck issue, and then the Housing Authority. Those are the 4 scheduled presentations.
And the Donahue is on short-term rentals.
Oh, right, yeah.
Right. Okay, thank you, Deirdre. Anything else?
I had 2 quick things, Madam Chair, at the end. I'll wait
Sure.
till you're ready.
Any correspondence or staff updates, Kathy? I'm reminding you about Mr. Tolley.
Yes, I have some staff updates. I think you know, have all heard about some difficulties that a local lobsterman has had with zoning with regard to selling lobsters at his private residence. So I think what we're going to try and do is, I think as a community, we're a coastal community. It's perfectly understandable that, you know, a fisherman who has fish or shellfish or lobsters who has their own catch, maybe we can do something to modify the zoning to allow those particular types of uses to happen in a residential neighborhood under maybe a special permit from the Zoning Board of Appeal, but some way allow it to happen. So I think that's something that I think Mr. Rittenhour is going to reach out to this gentleman and see whether maybe he wanted to come to the planning board, maybe at our next meeting, at least for an initial discussion. We can get a better understanding of what he does and what his needs are, and kind of see how it balances with how we know of our particular community. And then maybe we can work on some language for the fall special town meeting to address that issue. So I wanted to bring that up. And boat storage, I think, is another.
Before you
Oh,
leave that
sorry.
section,
Yep.
what element of the zoning bylaw would this most probably be an amendment to?
There's been a couple discussions. Some people have talked about maybe home occupation. I don't know whether we want to actually do it there. I'm kind of thinking of maybe more as a note in the use table of making it clear that it could be done, retail of these particular types of things could be done through a special permit from the Zoning Board of Appeals. One thing that always is going to come up, and it came up when we did the food trucks, is some type of signage. So maybe this is a case where, you know, when you're in operation, you can have one of those A board signs that you put out when you're open on your property. I think this whole kind of came to the knowledge of the town because of off-premises signs that were being put out all over the place. It was directing people, and all of a sudden, we got people saying, what is this? They're not supposed to do that. We can't do off-premises signs, that type of thing. So it kind of brought attention to this. So I think if we need to be sure that there is some type of signage that could be done on that. I'd like to think it can be done through a note. It's someone with a commercial fishing license who has a commercial retail sale license, brick and mortar, because he's not selling it out of his truck or at the dock, that type of thing. There's a bunch of things I'm kind of learning about, don't know that much about, but I feel pretty confident that we could do something that's reasonable, that would be related to fishing and shellfishing and that type of thing, to allow that to happen in a reasonable way.
Captain, the other thing that came up was is there any involvement from the Department of Health? with
Yes.
Fish being out there, so that would be maybe something we could consider as, if we decide to do anything, is to have some sort of review from the Department of Health, because especially since it's fish.
Yep. They're required to get a permit from the health department, which I don't believe that they have.
Didn't have it.
So, yes, I mean, obviously, anytime selling something, it needs to be inspected, make sure it's properly refrigerated, all the things that we do for our restaurants and that type of thing. So anything that it's obviously contingent upon getting all, and their state regulations, meeting all state and local regulations with regard to that. We're just talking zoning, and we're just talking signage, and we would be just talking the use in a residential zoning area.
So it wasn't pre-existing then? It wasn't allowed to continue?
My understanding is the analysis that was done was that it was not pre-existing.
And agricultural uses could occur, right? If they wanted a farm stand, food, vegetable stand, that would be allowed, right? Residential?
I don't know, it depends on the size of their lot. Everyone can always go to the farmer's market. I think they have stalls there, you can always sell things there. I'm not going to get into the analysis that was done before and what's allowed and not allowed, but I think we can address this probably through relatively simply. And I just wanted to bring it to your attention and make sure that you guys are comfortable, inviting someone to come and have that conversation with us at our next meeting.
Because, the zoning took a very strict view of that. As a courtesy, do we reach out and tell them that we may invite him here to testify? I mean, are we undercutting? the
testifying.
zoning?
He's not
I
testifying.
think testifying.
It's an informational session, correct?
Conversation.
Are we undercutting the zoning by doing that?
Meaning the ZBA.
No,
Made their decision, Susan.
Pardon me?
They've made their decision.
No, I know it, and it was a good decision, I think. But if we,
no.
my understanding was it was a closed issue, and Tolly said if you want to appeal it, go to what I think you said, some sort of state board.
No.
If we invite this gentleman here, even for an information session, are we questioning are we undercutting, are we criticizing?
No, they're just enforcing what we wrote in the zoning bylaw that was approved at town meeting by our residents. We can propose to change it.
That's right. And that's how I
Residents can
look
decide
at
to
it.
not vote for it, or vote for it.
That's exactly how I look at it, Susan, and the rest of the board is, we're finding more information to potentially change what the zoning is allowable right now. I do think having home business going there, I think that's a slippery slope. I really do. I think if we're gonna do anything, it should be noted as, here's the direction, you have to go to ZBA to get, if it's allowable, an allowed use.
Okay. So you're comfortable with that? I'm just going to tell Mr. Rittenhour that the planning board would be happy to have him come to the May 7th.
But if I heard you correctly, in terms of the timing of this gentleman being able to resume sales, it will have to wait until a fall town meeting happens and any proposed changes are then passed.
I think
He then goes to the zoning board to apply for a special permit.
I think he has the ability, and I don't know, these are things that we'd have to learn, but I think he has the ability to sell his catch out of his truck. It becomes a brick and mortar when he brings it to his home, and he's not selling it at the dock.
Got it. And
So I think there's
notwithstanding,
this distinction that I didn't know anything about.
right, and notwithstanding whatever, as Susan brought up before, whatever legal remedies he wants to pursue on a parallel basis about the zoning board's decision, that has nothing to do with the conversation here about updating the use table.
Yeah, the recent problem he had with the zoning board of appeals is it was a repetitive petition.
I
He was
watched
doing
it.
everything.
Yeah.
So could he then go before the ZBA has done this in the past, go before and maybe ask for a variance from the home occupation, which is totally different. A one-year variance to get him through. Maybe we would write something saying, the planning board is looking at this, we're interested in making a change at fall town meeting, and would be supportive of allowing it, whatever you guys want to do, in order, so that's one option. It's a different request, it's short-term, and they've done it before, like when someone was living in their, an RV on a property. And like they understood the hardship and they said, okay, we're gonna let you stay there for another 4 months or something and let that happen. I don't know what the lobster season is, but we could do something along those lines if you wanted to pursue that. Again, I don't know how the ZBA would feel about it, but they have given those short-term relief for hardships in the past, so I don't know. So unless there's no other questions, one of the other things that seems to keep rearing its head is the whole issue of boat storage. We had looked at that back in 2019, and when we presented it to the select board, they unanimously voted to not recommend it. I think there were some concerns about whether the allowing the boats in the driveway was something that was just going to be during the boating season, so people don't have to try and maneuver their boat around in weird places on their property, or maybe they don't even have a place on their property, and whether it was going to be having a bunch of shrink-wrapped boats in people's driveways all year round. So I think that might be something we'll take another look at, and maybe it's a case of we're allowing it during the boating season to put it in your driveway. Because that's when we mostly get the complaints about it. But then maybe not allowing, if you want to do some long-term storage, then you need to be sure that you can, that one time a year, you can maybe do that maneuver to get it to where you need it to be on your property. So that's something that's probably coming up. And then the one thing that I have been like, not looking at is the accessory dwelling
Yes,
units.
that was literally the one I written down.
Yeah, I know. So,
About town council.
yep. So now through June is going to be horrible, because we're going to have a lot of things going on with the community planning grant, and then Jeff's going to have drafts of, the existing conditions, and all of that stuff's going to be going on. So probably, other than the lobster issue, I think we probably wouldn't be looking at talking about these things again until like the summer, just because we need to get past June. We need to finish. We need to get you be able to use all of that community planning grant, use that money up. So that's all I have to say about that.
Okay, thank you, Kathy. Again, just a recap on meetings. Next week, the April 22nd, the housing workshop. April 29th is the town meeting. April 30th, we'll plan on having a meeting, and then we meet with the select board on the 6th,
Correct.
and then we would have our first planning board meeting in May on the 7th.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
point
sir.
of order, do we want to make sure everybody can come to April 30th?
Yeah, we were going to.
Yes, that's exactly
Will
where we
had
are, Ken.
suggested we do a calendar check on that.
I'm available.
Yeah, I'm good.
I would say I'm 50/50. That doesn't help.
I am
but-
50/50 as well.
But I don't, yeah, I don't know.
It's just one of those things where we need
I get
to,
it.
and
I get the need for it. I just,
yeah.
but quorum, now, thanks to Deirdre, quorum is now 4.
Sorry.
Quorum was always
good.
Quorum was always 4.
You know what I meant?
Yeah.
I meant something positive about Deirdre now being here.
No, we love having 7
We
members.
only had 6 people. Oh, right, I guess it didn't matter, right? So, Deirdre, we're glad you're here.
I think I'm free on the 30th.
Yeah. So at least, and you, Susan and Joanne, you good?
I'm good.
Joanne's good? Is Susan good?
I don't know yet. No.
You don't know yet? All right.
We need to check with Jim.
Yep, I'll send an email.
Well, 50/50 is not a negative thing. Could be a positive thing, but if you could keep on us
Okay.
about it.
I'm on vacation next week,
Oh, well, then don't keep on
so
us.
you're on your own. You're on your own.
Well, then whose fault is it? Okay, if we don't show up. But May 7th is still going to be a regular fun time, and May 21st.
Yes,
far as we know.
As far as I know,
There are
yeah.
no other additional meetings, except for April 30th.
Correct, right now.
Okay.
But keep in mind that we may need to meet. When the consultants come up with product that they need our input on, they're gonna need it right away, because we have such a short timeline to get the work done before June 30th.
Okay.
So some flexibility would be appreciated.
Well, I guess what I would say is there just may be more Zoom, I may have to participate more by Zoom, but that's fine. Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any other questions on the meetings schedule? Okay, so may I have a motion to adjourn?
We'll be adjourned.
Second.
We have a second?
Yes.
All right. Any discussion?
Aye. Oh, sorry.
All in favor?
Got excited. Aye.